Hey, what's up guys? This is Anthony from Anthony's Customs, and for this video, we are going to look at the top 10 Marvel Legends for 2019. This is probably the second most requested video I get every year, other than the general top 10 that we do obviously by default. Now I do have to make one stipulation before we go forward. I am not including the Fantastic Four wave in this video if they happen to belong. I don't know yet, I haven't reviewed them yet, I do own them. I know that line's not going to see full spread release until after the year ends anyway, so I'm just going to include them next year, even if I do happen to get a review or two done before the end of the year. And also, I just have to get this video done. I can't wait until the end of the year every year. That's not the best situation. So, we're not including that wave. Everything prior to that wave will be up for grabs in this list. And I don't know if they would or not. I think Doom's pretty cool, but I haven't looked at him all that close. Anyway, this list is, again, the kind of thing where you can substitute a lot of different figures in for different places and rearrange the list however you want, probably. Depends on how I'm feeling at the time when I do it. I'm just kind of going with what I think is the best value objectively, best quality, and then if I need to decide between two similar figures, I go with my personal preferences and the X factor type of situation. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started with a couple of honorable mentions. Our first honorable mention for this list is the 80 Years Iron Man, and this one's kind of heartbreaking for me, and that's definitely hyperbole, but you get my drift. It's very disappointing because this figure is excellent in so many ways. It could have easily been maybe even the number one spot, but having the arms on the wrong sides, the upper arms, and being manufactured that way, not just being a one-off issue, is totally detrimental to the ranking of this list. I can't put him higher on the list because he's got the right and left biceps switched. And you can't even swap him out properly because it was actually made that way. So at some point in development, the arms got switched, and so the pegs don't swap. You'd have to swap out the elbows, and I think that'll do it, but still, that's just not an acceptable issue to have. But otherwise, this figure is extraordinarily good. It's easily the best especially the best classic Iron Man, but easily the best regular Iron Man figure they've ever released. And then similarly, we have this figure, which is the Hydra Supreme figure, which is just a really great release, but it's part of a 2-pack where, and I don't think many people really cared about this version of Arnim Zola, so I didn't really want to include it as a standalone figure because it's great, but if you have to buy the 2-pack, it definitely detracts a little bit, because Zola's fine, but it's nothing special, and most of it's been reused, so just kind of a bummer. Coming in at number 10, we have another 2-pack, though this one I think is a little bit more worthy, no pun intended, because we're going to get to that in a minute. Spoilers. We have the Hulk and Wolverine 2-pack. Now this is, as far as I'm concerned, the best overall Marvel Legends Hulk. It's not the best in every way, but it is best overall. And at least as far as I can tell, objectively, I can't see anything that is overall better. Sure, the face-off Hulk maybe has better sculpting. Maybe a couple other ones have better anatomy or better articulation in some places. But this one is definitely going to be the one you want to grab. If you're only getting one Hulk and you don't have one yet, for some reason, this is the one you want. The green is nice and vibrant. The purple is purpley enough. The head's a really nice sculpt. It does come with the torn shirt if you want it. The articulation's okay. It's good enough. The butterfly joint only going backwards is a huge problem though, because you can't Hulk smash anything. It's definitely irritating. But it's okay. And the Wolverine it comes with, aside from the head and pink arms, it's a solid enough release, so it's fine. As a 2-pack, it's okay. Coming in at number 9, we have the 80 Years Thor figure, which is the classic Thor. And the thing that's interesting about this is it's a pretty darn good figure. Mine, of course, had the head glued in one position, which is impossibly strange because why would you glue that? But it's glued. But here's the thing about this figure, is it's not that much better, really, than, I think it was the Series 3. I think it was Series 3 Thor that came out forever ago. Yeah, it's definitely better, but it's not that much better. So it's really good, but it's not as necessary. And also, they didn't give him any of the V shape. His chest is so narrow and small. His arms are nice and beefy, but his chest is the same size as his abdomen. So Thor has no pectoral shape. He's rather scrawny looking in the torso, so it's definitely a problem. And his cape has really splotchy shading. These are kind of small issues, of course. This is a top 10 list, by the way, but you know, it could be a lot better for what it is. Coming in at number 8, we have the 80 Years cap. We're on a trend so far with the 80 Years figures. We'll see how that goes. Now, this cap, again, it's a really great release, but it is lacking in some quality areas, and the shading is definitely an issue for the metal. There's like stripes of the blue on the scale mail and not stripes, and it doesn't look great. And the red gloves are not anywhere near consistent enough. But again, these are small issues, so of course he still makes the list. But he is lacking a little bit of heart and soul, even though he's probably the best cap we've seen in a long time. Coming in at number 7, we have Horse Thor, and the reason I picked this guy is it's just about exactly what it should be. It's not absolutely perfect, especially with the articulated jaw. They definitely dropped the ball a little bit there, but that's about it. Otherwise, it's about as good as you can expect for a Marvel Legends figure, and I think it's well within the reasonable level of quality for a $20 figure. They don't have to be crazy to be good. That's the thing I keep trying to say to everybody. Marvel Legends, they're often coming up short when we don't even need all that much for them to be a successful release. And this guy's a great example of that. There's not a ton of paint or a lot of new sculpt work, but what's there is done properly, and that's all it takes. For number 6, we have Rescue, which is one I know some people absolutely hated. I still can't figure out why, but this figure is sculpted wonderfully, and the paint job is just as good. It's great, and it has the alternate backpack piece, which is done really well again. It's exceptional. I know a few people said the neck is too long. It is absolutely not too long, anatomically speaking. The only reason it looks too long is because you're used to seeing those short necks with giant lollipop syndrome. As far as action figures go, you have to have somewhat of a larger neck because it has to go all the way up into the head, so it can look that way from some angles, but if you look at it from the front, you can tell it's perfectly reasonably long, and women have longer necks than men anyway. But the paint on this thing is extraordinarily good for Hasbro. The sculpt is great. It has really nice articulation. There's really not much more you could want from this figure. It's a really, really strong release. Coming in at number 5, we have Worthy Cap, which is the best movie cap figure from Hasbro to date, by far, in my opinion. It's not the perfect figure in every way, but overall, as far as I can tell, it's the best one. I think the biggest problem with this guy is the hammer he came with, which was kind of an important accessory, has a giant butthole on it, and that's universal across every release as far as I can tell. I mentioned it in my review and everybody said, yep, mine has that too. And that's a bummer, but just about everything else on this figure is really nice, aside from maybe the bicep swivel could be a little better, I guess. But otherwise, it's just about exactly what it's supposed to be. So yeah, it's definitely the best cap as far as I can tell, as far as movie figures go so far. Coming in at number 4, we have everyone's favorite blue Furball, Beast. An excellent release from Hasbro with a few excellently bad issues. The shading is way too splotchy, and it detracts from the figure. If the shading was more subtle or subdued or spread out or just directionally placed, it would have been so much better. But that's the biggest thing holding this figure back, and obviously it's just the shading, so it's not that big of an issue, but it is an issue, and he's obviously still pretty high on the list. Yeah, the face could have a little bit of a cleaner sculpt and not be shiny dark blue, but it's still a really great release, and even though he's missing some accessories, I think it's one that pretty much everybody should buy if they're collecting Marvel Legends. Coming in at number 3, we have Hercules, and this figure is damn near perfect. I was going to put him at number 1 until I remembered that he skipped leg day. His legs don't match the rest of his body. They're just too dang small. He's got very, very skinny legs relative to his upper body, especially considering the fact that his pants are sculpted to be baggy. His legs are really skinny, and it's distracting to look at, especially with the big poofy belt at his waist. He's got a huge upper body, and then the big poofy belt makes his waist look even smaller, and his legs are very skinny. So I love the sculpt, I love the paint, I love the accessories, I love the effort put into it. It's just those dang legs. You can't skip leg day if you're Hercules. I guess you could, but you shouldn't, because it doesn't look good. Coming in at number 2, we have Silver Samurai. This is one of my personal favorite releases this year. Maybe it is my personal favorite release. The only thing holding this guy back, okay, well, there's two things, kind of one thing, is the coloring on this guy. The gray, the darker gray, the clothing parts, they're too blue. He's almost always drawn with like a really, like you can see in the background there, a darker gray, no blue to it at all type of gray. And so that just throws it off a little bit. He's still the number 2 spot, so it's not a big deal. But the other issue is that every single one I've ever seen has a scratch on his chest for the red paint, and that sucks. And if you can't avoid it, then you have to include it as a factor. So it's definitely a bummer, but this guy articulates really nicely. He's got tons of great sculpt. accessories. It does look right overall. It's just a really great release, and I'm so glad they didn't screw it up because I love Silver Samurai, and Hasbro didn't screw it up, so everybody should be happy about that. Coming in at number 1, we have Nightcrawler. I know this is one where some people took some issue with a few things, primarily the paint being super sloppy for the gloves, and I agree with you 100%. The paint sucks on the gloves, the red part in particular. The tail curls around in front of his legs, so it's hard to pose sometimes. Maybe his face is a little bit too baby-faced. Some people say that, some people don't, but that's it. This guy is great otherwise. He's got great proportions, great articulation, great sculpt work. There's really not much more you could do with a Nightcrawler figure other than tweak those few tiny things. I guess one thing you could do is not have a huge crotch gap. That seems to be a common trend these days, and people just aren't built that way. So that's a little distracting, I guess, if you notice it, but otherwise this guy's an excellent release. He has really good proportions. It's just a really strong Nightcrawler figure. I don't think they're going to do a better one anytime soon, not coming out of Hasbro anyway, so it's one you want to pick up, and I think you'll enjoy it. I can't imagine anybody not enjoying this release, so that's why it's number 1. Alrighty guys, that was my top 10 list for the Marvel Legends of 2019. Please do let me know in the comment section below which ones you agreed with, which ones you disagreed with, and maybe what even your 10 list might be. It's always fun to talk to you guys in the comment section, or if I don't get to respond to everything, which is probably not possible, it's nice to at least be able to read your comments, and I always do. So yeah, if you have ideas, go ahead and put them down there. I'd like to see them. And I don't need any more suggestions for top 10 lists. We have one more to come, which is going to be the top 10 worst Marvel Legends. That should be up in about 2 days from when you're seeing this, if you're seeing this on the first day. And that's going to pretty much round out our year. Everything post-Christmas is kind of inconsequential as far as YouTube is concerned. And so we're just going to get right back into the mainline reviews. So make sure you stick around for that, guys. Subscribe for all this kind of good content going forward, assuming YouTube doesn't explode. And in the meantime, keep collecting.